Welcome to Jamaica Magazine. Today we give support to the Jamaica National Heritage Trust, JNHT, in observing Taino Day 2017. This year marks the 525th year anniversary of the Tainos of Jamaica's first encounter with the Europeans. We recall the causes, consequences and lessons of this encounter, and we commit to educating current and future generations about the Taino culture. For the next half hour, we delve into the life and legacy of Jamaica's first inhabitants, who were once referred to as the Arawaks. I'm Adrian Atkinson. The news comes right after this message.
Energy saving is not a maybe, it's a must. So hear this. Yo, turn off your light, turn off your TV and your fan. When you not use it, turn off your heater and your AC as part of the plan. When you not use it, the public sector retrofitting, so the private sector and we fi join in. Retrofitting? Yeah. What that? How you do that? Listen up. Hey, a whole time light bulb. That's what that. Use energy saving bulb. I delete that. Put a regulator on your refrigerator. Use your wits to save water. Be smart, you know. And all motorists who love to drive fast. Ease up half of the gas. Save gas. Energy conservation throughout the nation. Every woman and man come join in the plan. The plan to save energy. We must save energy. Ease up on the energy. Up on the energy. Save today, protect tomorrow.
Good day, I'm Theodore Henry, and this is your GIS News for Friday, May 5. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the state will be spending over $4 billion this year upgrading infrastructure in Ocho Rios, St. Anne. Funds for facelift works are being provided by the Urban Development Corporation and the Port Authority of Jamaica. Works to start this year include a $2.5 billion upgrading of the Reynolds Pier to accommodate larger cruise ships and the expansion of the promenade at the Ocho Rios Pier at a cost of $270 million. $100 million will also be spent upgrading the Ocho Rios Market, and an artisan village will be constructed at a cost of $80 million.
We are not doing that for tourists, because tourists don't want to come to an artificial attraction. Tourists want to come and see the genuine, real thing of how we live as a people. And we want to show the world that as a people, we live in class and style.
Prime Minister Holness was speaking on Thursday during a town hall meeting at the Ocho Rios High School. It's the first in a series of town halls planned to update the country on government's work to build a prosperous Jamaica. Parliament has amended the Public Debt Management Act, PDMA, to make certain provisions on par with international and local best practices. The legislation was approved in the House of Representatives on Wednesday. While opening the debate the day before, Finance Minister Audley Shaw said the changes were necessary to improve operational efficiency and effectiveness of debt management.
The PDMA represents a coherent and comprehensive legislative framework and takes a strategic approach to public debt management. The proposed amendments will therefore seek to be more detailed, specific, and be more flexible while still remaining consistent with the Act, thereby conferring better outcomes to the provisions of the Act.
The amendments provide for the establishment of a Public Debt Management Committee, the creation of a new timetable for tabling the annual report on the management of public debt, and provisions for government to make payments on non-guaranteed debt incurred by a public body. The PDMA was enacted on December 24, 2012 and came into operation in January 2013. Parliament has approved the retroactive implementation of GCT on group health insurance premiums effective April 3. The move came on Wednesday by way of an amendment to the resolution approving the tax collection, which was announced by the Finance Minister during this year's budget debate. During Wednesday's sitting, Parliament also approved a later start date for the application of GCT on residential electricity consumption over 150 kilowatt hours. It was initially to take effect on April 3, but has been pushed back to April 6.
The amended date of April 6 has been agreed in consultation with the JPSCO to allow for their systems to be able to efficiently administer the new threshold.
The Ministry of Health is looking to partner with the United Kingdom, UK government to train Jamaica's specialist nurses. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton made this announcement in Parliament on Wednesday.
Simply put, what it would mean is that we train for some time here. They go to the UK for additional time, primarily on the clinical side because the UK has the hospitals. And at the end of that process, we both benefit from the value that is created by that trained nurse in that they can work in both locations.
Dr. Tufton said the collaboration was being sought as a measure to offset the high recruitment of Jamaican nurses by foreign jurisdictions, leading to shortages locally. He acknowledged that increased training was ideal, but said those efforts were challenged by insufficient clinical infrastructure to support this.
The only other option until we improve our clinical side of the infrastructure is to collaborate with other jurisdictions in the training process, cross-border training, that is, Mr. Speaker.
Minister Tufton said discussions were already underway with the UK government and an announcement would be made within the next 2 to 3 months on the progress of the talks. In the meantime, Cabinet has approved an immediate increase in the establishment of the cadre of specialist nurses by 300 posts. And finally, National Security Minister Robert Montague says Jamaica's crime-fighting interventions will benefit from increased use of reliable data. He was addressing a recent IDB-supported forum on crime and violence in Jamaica focused on data-driven policy.
We have to take back the space from the criminals and build a society that turns its back on criminality. And there is no other way to do this than with effective policy supported by sound and accurate data. Data from community surveys, systemic observations, and crime prevention assessments are necessary ingredients for data-driven crime prevention.
And that's it for JIS News today. I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
We want a productive Jamaica. We all are productive Jamaicans. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity is the way to go for all us Jamaicans. Small business, big business, old and young, we are tell every woman and man. We want growth and prosperity for a better nation with a building plan. So we can build our product and sell our product and put more money in our hand. Our economy can rise to a level and build a better nation. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity to move forward on this land. Productivity, that's the way to go, we should understand. Productivity.
Productivity, Pathway to Prosperity. A message brought to you by the Jamaica Productivity Center, a department of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security.
Last evening, Prime Minister Andrew Holness kicked off his first in a series of town hall meetings. In front of a large crowd at the Oterius High School auditorium in St. Anne, Mr. Holness spoke on Jamaica's growth agenda. Next, excerpts of the meeting.
Oterius has such great potential. Great potential. Today I met with representatives of the cruise shipping industry. And they all say what a great place Jamaica is. But, the town needs a little cleanup. But, the town needs a facelift. But the town needs greater public order in public spaces. The town needs some more development. And what they are saying to us is that yes, they would like the town to operate in a particular way that tourists can navigate and maneuver and enjoy the town. But you know what? we are not doing that for tourists, because tourists don't want to come to an artificial attraction. Tourists want to come and see the genuine, real thing of how we live as a people. And we want to show the world that as a people, we live in class and style. That we live in peace and dignity. That we keep our environment clean. That we are orderly, but that we are also equitable and fair in our society. That we protect our environment and we protect the vulnerable and we protect our children. The tourists want to come to a place where the people themselves take pride in it, and that the buildings we build or even the stalls that we put up project a sense of order, of discipline, of looking forward. That even if we are poor in our pockets, we are not poor in our spirit and our attitude and our pride. And that is what the prosperity is about. It is the change in the outlook from a poverty outlook to want to say that we were never destined to be a poor people. And so the government must make the investment and take the lead in transforming your town, but also in the transformation of the way you think, in transforming our mind and our outlook and our view of the future, which can't be pessimistic. It has to be optimistic, because the Bible tells you that God has a plan for you. He said it in Jeremiah, a plan to prosper you and not to harm you. So in that prosperity plan, let us fix up the market. Market don't have to be a dirty place. Market don't have to be a congested place. Market don't have to be a place where you have to think twice to go walk in the market, because in other countries, the market is the place where people go for entertainment. They go to have lunch. It is an attraction. Can you imagine the day when your market is an attraction, when the cruise ship people come off and them say, no, I don't want to go down River Fall today, I want to go to the market. I want to get some fresh Jamaican fruits. I hear about soursop and oat eat apple. I want to get some in the market. Right now, you can't carry no tourists to the market, really. So that is why the UDC will be spending, come now, Mr. Graham, help me, how much millions we're spending on the market? Overall, we're going to spend $1.2 billion. This year, we're starting by spending $100 million on improving the market. Then now, the one pier that you presently have that is suitable for the docking of cruise ships and the promenade around that, we are going to be spending several $1 million on that too. Help me out again, Mr. Graham. We are going to be spending $270 million on improving that promenade. So when the tourists come off the ship and they're walking around that loop, they call it, they feel the sense of pride that we take in our town. Recently, I had the opportunity to go to Cuba. And Don't make no mistake about it. Cuba is a beautiful place. I happened to walk along their famous Malecon and ended up in their craft market. And believe me, they have a lovely cathedral there as well. Si, senor, si, senor. Senorita. Yes, so their craft market has some really high quality craft items. And we too have our high quality craft items. But sometimes the little chuck up conditions under which we attempt to sell them is not attractive and endearing to the tourists. It is time that we take a different view of craft and treat it as an important pillar of the tourist experience. Give our artisans and our craft retailers appropriate space for them to be able to display their wares. So we are going to do some improvement work. Indeed, you want to call it some expansion work. We're going to be building an artisan village just up the road here that will have not just space for the retail, but space for the actual craft making, so that when the tourists come, they're not just going to purchase, but they can actually see and interact with the artisans at work, that they can come and say, I want mine painted in red, or I want mine painted in green. They leave, they go Dunn's River, they go all over, and then they come back and they get their craft. They can have it customized. So help me out again, Mr. Graham. How many $1 million we're spending there? 80. We're going to be spending $80 million this year to start, and we are starting the construction of the new artisan village this year. So the cruise ship people obviously said they want more attractions. They want to see the town organized in such a way that tourists and locals can integrate and move around, but they want better facilities for docking. And so we have undertaken a major project with the Reynolds Pier. And the head of the PAJ is here, the chairman, Dr. Clark, is here as well. So just remind me, Professor Shirley, how much we're spending now? Is it millions or billions? 2.5 billion. Let me get that right. We are going to be spending $2.5 billion, Jamaican dollars, right, to improve the Reynolds Pier so that it can now comfortably take cruise ships. So now you will have 2 berths at which you can receive cruise ships, which means you can take on 2 cruise ships at a time now. So this government is not just talking, we are doing. And all of what I've said to you are things that will start this year.
Nutritious food, succulent dishes, superior workmanship, and excellent service. Jamaica is on the go. Let's grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Let's harness the indomitable spirit of our most valued resource, our people. Let's support our local businesses. After all, buying Jamaican means building Jamaica.
Earlier today, the Seville Heritage Park was the scene of a celebration. Students from across Jamaica gathered at the location to gain knowledge on Taino culture. The students were also able to view the Great House at the site, where Tainos, Europeans and Africans lived and interacted. Next, we give you a tour of this historic dwelling.
Hi, welcome to the Seville Heritage Park. My name is Rodney, I'll be your guide. We're going through 7 rooms depicting the cultures that we have here in Jamaica. Come. Welcome. The Taino Indians, the first inhabitants of the island. They were here from 1500 years ago. Here we have a picture of what they looked like. And here we can see them playing a favorite game, a ball game played by both males and females. And that game was played mainly to settle disputes. The winner of the game would be the winner of the quarrel that they had. The cacique, the ruler of the village, an all-male governing structure, here was called Maima by the Indians, one of the 4 large Taino settlements here in the parish of St. Anne. Now, here we have some artifacts, hand axes, choppers and blades, the pestle stone used for pounding the corn and the cassava that they planted, an axe head, a scrape of stone used in the making of a canoe, and a canoe was made from one entire tree, a tree which was called the silk cotton tree. Over here, we have some of the idols that they would worship, idols which were called zemis. And zemis were just representation of their gods. Some of their utensils, bowls used to prepare and to store food, while in the middle we have fragments of their cooking pot, and that was used to cook their favorite meal, the pepper pot soup. A part of their griddle that was used to bake their cassava breads on. That cassava bread is what we call the bami. Now the Spanish were the second inhabitants of the island. They arrived here back in 1494, May 5th to be exact. Some of the artifacts that they brought, and they were the ones who brought the iron to Jamaica. They brought it as weapons. The sugar mold, and that was used in the making of the sugar. And here we have a diagram of what that first sugar factory that was built here in Jamaica looked like. And we have ruins of that sugar factory on the other side of the property. They stayed here, building their homes until what they've created was the first Spanish capital of Jamaica. They even gave here a name. They called here Cibiala Nueva, which meant New Seville. The first church was built, the St. Peter Martyr Abbey Church. Also a governor's castle, home for the first Spanish governor of Jamaica, Sir Juan de Esquivel. The first sugar factory, built to crush that sugar cane, and an artisan workshop, built where these limestone rocks were carved on. These limestone carvings were unearthed back in 2004, buried 6 feet down. Baptismal font. What happened to the Indians while the Spanish had control of the island? Because the Spanish were here and introduced the encomienda system, that led to the almost extinction of the Taino population here in Jamaica. Africans were then brought to replace that workforce. And here we have pictures of how these Africans were carried from Africa to the Caribbean. A cross-section of a slave ship showing how these enslaved Africans were packed on board, shackled against each other, and a stock looking just like this, was placed over the right foot of each and every one of these Africans, with a pin going through that, anchoring it to the floorboard of the ship. Now the British, they came in 1655, battled against the Spanish, and the British won. Jamaica was now under British rule. As rewards for their victory, they were given the island to share amongst themselves. So the captains of the British Army all got a part of the island. The captain who got here, 3,000 acres of this land, his name was Captain Richard Hemmings, and he was the one who built this house that we're in. This house was built in the late 1600s and then rebuilt back in 1745. At first it was a two-floor house, built to overlook the entire property and also to reflect the wealth of the planter. But soon after the house was built, a hurricane passed through and damaged the top section of the house. His grandson came back in 1745, knocked off the top, added a roof to the bottom, and then placed that lovely veranda you saw outside onto the house, and that's how the house has been ever since. Some wares that you would have seen in a house like this. In this room on the board, we have the names of the enslaved Africans who were here on this estate. 274 of them, not counting those under 10. Now, even though some of these Africans were captured and brought here as slaves, they still brought their culture with them. Hence, the yaba. Made from clay, originated back in Africa, and the Africans would make it from the clay that was found here. The chamber pot, the candle holder, and the burnishing stones used to polish some of these pots.
Did you know there are descendants of Tainos still alive in Jamaica today? Yes, there are Tainos living in parts of Jamaica such as Manchester and St. Elizabeth, fully integrating with all other ethnic groups. These Tainos are carrying on the legacy of their ancestors, Jamaica's first inhabitants. As we continue to learn more of our past, greater understanding is being unveiled about the contributions of the Tainos. The Jamaica National Heritage Trust is actively promoting this through interventions designed to increase public awareness. To gain more knowledge on Taino culture, book a trip to the Seville Heritage Park. This crossroads of history is an ideal spot for picnics, relaxation, and even horseback riding. Call them at 972-2191 or 972-0665. Remember, knowledge of who we are as a people is crucial to becoming the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. This is where we close the pages for today's show. Remember, the information continues to flow on our social media pages. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You may also visit our webpage, jrs.gov.jm, or our YouTube channel. Feel free to download our app from the Google Play Store. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Have yourselves a great weekend.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.